It is time once again, everybody, to talk about possibly your favorite sport, and definitely one of mine. It is time to talk about more MLB baseball. Now, I have been gone for a little bit, as I stated previously. As I was traveling, I went to the Giants home opener. We won that game. We ended up losing the next day in horrific fashion, and then we came back and we won again today. So, this isn't obviously going to be all Giants, everything, though I could probably do that at some point. What I want to do is kind of see how this turns out and sort of using this weekly baseball roundup as almost sort of a podcast. Just you, me, my unfiltered emotions. This is a continuation, obviously, of not building a script from the last two videos I did. We're just free flowing conversation and things like that. I have my notes as usual. And we have a few different topics to discuss, and obviously that happens when you have a week's worth of content just to shoot the shit with. But first of all, I want to talk about the no hitter by Ronel Blanco. That happened super early in the week, so I didn't have any time to discuss it. I could have made a video on it, but it is what it is. Now, Ronel Blanco, the reason we're also going to start off with him is because I want to talk about today's game. Yesterday's game, I can't remember. It's early in the morning when I'm doing this. So you'll have to forgive me for misrememberations of dates and things like that. But Ronel Blanco started the season, his first 14 innings were no hit. No hits through his first 14 innings. He almost so Ronel Blanco, for those of you that don't know, is around uh is around 30 years old, and when he threw his no-hitter earlier this week, it was his 8th start ever in the major leagues. So an awesome congratulations to him, but then he continued that success into his next start where he threw another 6 no-hitter innings. And he's just been unbelievably dynamic. Um yeah, that first that no hitter was also the first start of his season. Um, Again, the Astros are playing without Verlander right now, so having guys like Ronell come in and just be dominant, like exceptionally dominant, is awesome to see for them at least. But it is kind of cool seeing a guy in his later years finally get up. He did pitch about, I think it was 17 games last year, but only like 7 of them were starts. And then now, as the full time starter, it was announced before the season had begun that they were going to use him as a starter. It's just seeing him hit the ground running. And I love that for him. I'm happy to see that, and I hope that he continues to have excellent success moving on from this. Another thing that happened earlier in the week was Bryce Harper had a 3 home run game against the Reds on April 2nd. It was the second time that he had done that in his career. I don't remember who the first team that he did it against was, but it is awesome as well to see kind of the reverse, where a guy like Harper, who has been around for a long time, who had a serious injury plagued season last year and is now coming back. He's playing first base still, I believe, and he's just slugging the best that he can. Now, I will preface that yes, if the Mookie Betts is still leading every statistical category as far as hitting for the most part, but it is great to see Bryce Harper out there slinging, out there slamming out into Phillies Park. So I'm glad to hear about that. Now, obviously, I try to be as unbiased as I can. But if you remember last week, we talked about Kyle Freeland. Now, Kyle Freeland was the guy who led. He dropped 10 earned runs on opening day. And he followed it up with another performance, his very next start, giving up 7 earned runs. Now, he is scheduled to pitch on April the 8th, which is when this will be coming out. And I don't want to rag on the guy. Like, it's easy for me to just be up here and be like, oh, this guy sucks. He's making $15 million. Get this guy out of here. Trade his ass. Like, obviously, it's super easy to be able to do that. But instead, for this enormous, gargantuan, early failure of these 2 starts, I instead want to take a different approach about that. I have never looked into, even heard of Kyle Freeland before this point, and now I'm kind of rooting for him. Now I kind of just want to see him succeed. I want him to go out and throw like a 6 inning, like 1 ERA, or 1 earned run, like 3 hit game. I just want him to throw like a solid game. So he is pitching today. We will continue to keep track on Kyle Freeland. Again, it's only his second start. Only some, not even everybody's had 3 starts to start the season. I'm just saying this is like really bad to start out. He only threw 3 1/3 innings in his second start, so he's thrown like less than 6 innings total. I would love to see him throw 6 in one game. Just go out there, perform well, and when he does, we will take a shot. That's right, we will take a shot on here when we can finally announce that Kyle Freeland has performed in a solidly in a game. That is my hope. And until then, we will be critical, but not harmful, I will say. I don't want to be like, this guy can never pitch. Obviously, he's been around for a little bit. And he is pitching for the Rockies. So he's already on the worst possible team. One of the worst possible teams to have a good, solid outing. But I believe in him. I believe in this guy, and I want to see him succeed, so we will be rooting for him, and again, we will be taking a shot once he finally does manage to get over that hump. Now, other than that, we were kind of going into that last episode. There was a bunch of undefeated teams. There was a bunch of winless teams. And all of those have been completely squashed now by this point. The Tigers lost. The Yankees lost. Everybody lost. We were riding that high of the Yankees sweeping the Astros. And that was pretty cool. But now there are no more undefeated teams. The Pirates have lost. The Yankees have 2 losses this year. I think the Tigers lost today against Oakland. By the way, we do have to talk about that. That's going to be a discussion later. And also, the final winless team, the Miami Marlins, finally got a win after 9 games. So it's a hard early start for Jazz Chisholm and the boys. But we'll just have to see what comes of that. Again, it's April. It's baseball in April. Like, nothing is set in stone. All of these good teams can be bad. All of these bad teams can be good, especially now that we have a few of these injuries that have been plaguing about. But it does kind of go into a little something. I was actually going to talk about a couple of the players that were injured because they were cementing themselves as like they were looking like they were going to be lead leaguers in a couple of different pitching categories, but we're going to have to move off of that. Instead, we'll talk about Joey Bart. Now, again, I am trying to make this more podcast related, so I'm not trying to look at this board of notes and things like that, but I just want to talk about Joey Bart for a long little while. Now, if you're not a Giants fan, if you don't know who Joey Bart is, let me just give you a little glimpse back into the future, or into the past. Glimpse back into the future. Oh my God. Again, it's early. So Joey Bart initially looked to be the heir apparent to Buster Posey. What do I mean by this? Well, Joey Bart was coming in. He had all kinds of unbelievable pop. He looked like he was going to be a really solid defender at the catcher position. and he had the luxury of sitting behind one of 100% my favorite catcher of all time, but one of the best to ever do it, especially defensively. Like, you can't talk about defensive catchers without bringing up guys like Yadier Molina, Buster Posey, those kind of guys. And for a long while, he kept being brought up and sent down and brought up and sent down, which is pretty typical for a younger guy. They want to stretch out that eligibility and team control over a guy. But then it just seemed like he never got into. He never really turned into that major league catcher that we all thought he was going to be. Like, we already had high hopes enough that he was going to be the next Buster Posey for the next 10 years. But even then, we were struggling to see him just be consistent. There were a lot of games where, like, everybody's rolling. The entire team is rolling. Everybody's knocking him around. The pitching's doing well, but Joey Bart wasn't. And although I haven't been around baseball for super long, it did seem really odd. And there was a point where Giants fans were starting to be like, yeah, I don't believe in him. Guys like Sable were coming up. Patrick Bailey has turned to the stud that we thought Bart was going to be. As far as like a defensive catcher, especially with Patrick Bailey's framing ability, which is like elite level framing. So it eventually got to the point where everyone is expecting the Giants to move off of Joey Bart. And it was announced earlier this week that Joey Bart was DFA'd, and then eventually he was traded to the then undefeated Pirates, as they had sent one of their catchers onto IL, and Patrick Bailey was going to be playing in a backup catcher role. We did, however, get a former 8th round draft pick, Austin Strickland, not related to Hunter Strickland, former Giant, in case you were curious. But it seems so. It just never turned out for him. Now there are obviously guys like Mauricio Dubon, who I just never believed in, but Joey Bart I always believed in since I went to what was, I believe, his first ever home run. At least it was. If it wasn't his first home run, it was an opening day where on opening day he hit a solo shot. It was unbelievable, right to that left field, over by the glove and the bottle. And that's kind of the highlight of his Giants career, was that opening day game where Darren Ruff ended up winning in a walk-off. But since then, Joey Bart just never became a staple. He was never up in the majors long enough. He spent so much time in Sacramento in the AAA system. So I wish him the best of luck in his next endeavors, but I really am disappointed that it never managed to fully become something. Like, Joey Bart never amounted to the aspiration that me and other Giants fans had for him. Now, we have to talk about the Oakland Athletics, or the why they are still the Oakland Athletics. Now, obviously, there's been all this talk. The Oakland A's are going to be moving next year from the Coliseum over to Sutter Health Field in Sacramento and play there for the next 3 years while the stadium in Las Vegas is being built. I have a number of different opinions on this, starting with the fact that the Coliseum kind of took advantage of the A's and were like, yeah, you can stay for $90 million up front. Give. So there was no other choice other than to leave the Coliseum. I think there's two opinions that have been made for the Oakland Athletics move that was announced. One was That's it. Oakland, more than likely, will never have a sports team again, which is very sad, but were the A's going to survive in Oakland if they had continued to stay there? I don't believe they could have, not with the Giants across the pond, not with the Warriors down the street from the Giants. There was just so much there that was just overwhelming. The idea of like, let's go to an A's game. Like that simple notion of like, hey, let's go to an A's game. Why? Why would I? And now that is not to say that Oakland doesn't have its diehard fans, but as you can see over the last few years, attendance has been really small. Everybody hates the owner. I hate the owner. Simply because there's been a number of years in like free agency where they've actually made money. They, instead of spending money, they spend $0 in free agency. They spend $0 on bringing in players that aren't like drafted players or like people in their own farm system and things like that. They make money in free agency, and that just seems so backwards to me as a sports organization. How do you allow yourself to continuously and almost eternally just be irrelevant as far as the grand scheme of like Bay Area sports? Now, obviously, the A's had their own little dynasty in the 70s, but it's been 50 years since that. When was the last major success of the Oakland A's? You had Moneyball and you had like the early 2010s, but what after? So I feel deeply sorry for the people in Oakland who will probably never get to see a sports game in their own city ever again. I do feel sad about that. It's kind of like Portland. Like I know there's a lot of not Portland, sorry, Seattle for basketball. Like I know there's a lot of discussion going around about putting another sports team in Seattle, reviving the Supersonics and things like that. And you still feel bad. You feel bad when St. Louis lost their football team. You just can't help but have empathy for the people there that are fans, that are just that love their sport, love their team. Now you can make the argument like, oh, the Rams were never originally based in they were never originally based in St. Louis. They were originally somewhere else. So it's more like they're going back to where they were. But even still, you grow a fan base there over so many years. What else did St. Louis have? The Cardinals? Like, congratulations. Have y'all been relevant since Pujols and Molina? I know they're rebuilding, and this is probably going to turn out badly when I say this, but oh well. This is just a free-flowing conversation. This is all off the top of my head. I have no schedule to this after what I initially talked about, so I'm obviously going to say some things that are going to be turn out the wrong, and that's fine with me. But going back to Oakland, that initial sentiment was yes, the Oakland will never have a sports team again. It just can't thrive. The market's not big enough. Nobody wants to be in Oakland right now. You have a number of fast food restaurants and things like that pulling out of Oakland as well. But the other sentiment is the transition to play in Sacramento. And it is interesting that there is a current non-zero probability that the Oakland A's could stay in Sacramento forever. Like it's a non-zero probability. Las Vegas, there's a number of groups in Las Vegas that are already trying to repeal some of the money given for the stadium in Las Vegas for the A's. And it could end up stranded in Sacramento. Vivek, the owner of the Kings, has already come out and said that he is very much interested in possibly buying the what will be Sacramento A's. and keeping them there. And I think it's actually the best case scenario if they were to stay. Now, obviously, I'm a Giants fan. I don't have any specific strong love for the Oakland A's, but I do enjoy teams that are nearby. I do enjoy the rivalry and such like that. And having the team in Sacramento does a number of things. It allows the Oakland fans to simply drive across the pond, go to Sacramento for like an hour or something drive, and go see your team. You don't have to fly to Las Vegas to go see your team. Another thing is, I hate the idea of putting a baseball team in Las Vegas of all places. Like, I understand football, basketball is a stretch to me. I just can't see consistently because that is another discussion as well is Vegas getting their own basketball team because they do the summer league and stuff like that there. It's been a discussion along with returning a team to Seattle to have Vegas be another basketball team. It would be one of the expansion teams more than likely. But I just hate it. I cannot imagine it. If you're having trouble filling seats in Oakland, where the A's have been forever, I have a hard time imagining that you're gonna find a strong, secure fan base in Las Vegas of all places, which is like an LA or a New York. If you're not winning every single game every single year, you just fall out of relevancy. Look at what happened to the Clippers for a long time. Look at what has happened to the Chargers the last few years. You just fall out of relevancy with your city. And in that aspect, I think Vegas is perfect for having a football team. Where if you're, let's say, taking a trip to Vegas, you fly out on Thursday, you spend the weekend, and you go back Monday. That gives you ample opportunity to go to a Sunday football game. Whereas continuously filling seats for baseball games for 81 games doesn't seem as likely and doesn't seem as appealing to people. Baseball games, especially on the West Coast, are primarily played at some of the games are played later, but you're looking at 1 o'clock starts. That's when everybody's asleep after going around and prowling through the town of Vegas. You're not going to have just a public that's just up and awake at 1 p.m., 1 to 3 p.m. because they're getting ready to go out again for another night of partying. So it's really hard to imagine any kind of strong success with moving the A's to Las Vegas when half of Las Vegas doesn't even want them there to begin with. At least Sacramento seems very receptive to the idea of having a baseball team, a Major League Baseball team. They have the River Cats currently. But I don't know. I think it just fills so many different... I think keeping the A's in Sacramento just fills so many different criteria. You can still have the fans from Oakland traveling over easily to visit and watch your home games. You can still keep that core fan base around. You can bring in new fans with people who may not necessarily like the Giants or are more casual baseball fans since they don't live in a baseball city. You can introduce a lot more people to the sport of baseball as far as an activity to go to. And also it's great for families. It would be so nice for the people of Sacramento to just be like, hey, let's take the family out. Instead of driving 2 hours to San Francisco, let's drive 30, 40 minutes over to Sacramento and let's take everybody to the baseball game. It just makes total sense to me. It makes complete and total sense for the A's to stay in Sacramento. Now, will they? I don't know. They're going to have 3 years. 3 years for that Las Vegas stadium to be built. From the years of 2025 to 2027. So we're just going to have to see. We're going to have to monitor the A's situation in Sacramento. They're obviously not going to play there this year. They're going to play there next year. And also the fact they're going to be playing in a minor league stadium, which could play to the benefit of the A's. Now the A's may not be very good, as they are commonly known as the Triple A's, though having a more as one of the people called it, an intimate ballpark. Having a more intimate ballpark means all these away teams that are coming in, like the Yankees, the Astros, the Rangers, things like that, it's going to be home run city. You are going to have high scoring offenses running through that building. And that could be a strangely good allure to have families come to see the Oakland A's, especially considering if you're already a fan of these teams, or if you want to go see like historic franchises like the Yankees. You can watch Judge, Soto, and Stanton go hit bombs all day in Sutter Health Field. It's kind of cool if you think about it that it's going to be like a home run oasis, kind of like how Colorado is viewed. So I think there is hidden potential for that. And obviously, if the Oakland A's decide to stay, they're going to need their own stadium in Sacramento. And that's going to be a whole nother discussion and a whole nother hoopla to go through, so on and so forth. But I think there could be real excitement coming out of this. I really think there can be some good to come out of this move. So I will enjoy as much A's baseball as I can stand just to watch them in the Coliseum for one last time and enjoy it. I'm really going to try to enjoy it because it's over. It's over. Now, I don't mean to be a negative Nancy today. I don't know why I am being a negative Nancy today. But we do have to talk about some major injuries. And I will try, I promise I will try to lighten and levy the situation by the end. Oh, I know what I'll talk about at the end of this episode. So we'll deal on a higher note as we go along. This is kind of the low point right now. We'll start steadily improving up and up and up and up. But let me take you back. Like 2 years ago. When the pitch clock was first announced. Now, regardless of your opinions on it, I will just state the facts of what had happened when baseball announced that they were starting to run a clock system for pitching in the minor leagues. It was incredibly divisive. I wouldn't label myself as a baseball purist, but I do think that baseball is just one of those sports you can't put a clock on. I have wholeheartedly believed that. I understand that it's made improvements as far as a viewership experience. But for somebody like me who travels to go watch baseball games, there have been instances where because of the pitch clock, and I knew this was going to be a thing beforehand, because of the pitch clock, sometimes you spend more time traveling to the game than the game actually takes. And then you have to drive back. So it's a give and take situation. But right when it was announced, you had these two different sides. You had the side that was like, oh, finally, oh, thank goodness. I don't have to spend 4 hours at a baseball game anymore. I don't have to, it's not an ordeal for me anymore. And then you had the baseball purists who were outraged, absolutely fuming. You cannot put any clocks in Major League Baseball. You cannot regulate baseball to any time, pitching, innings-wise, anything like that. You cannot do that. Now, you know my feelings on it. But as the experiment has kind of gone along, it eventually moved up to the Major League level. And now we have full-fledged pitch clock in all levels of baseball, essentially. Along with that, there was also the universal DH rule, which I was opposed to. Initially, I've come a little more onto it now. I do see the benefits of it. Though I am somebody who loves to see, um, I love to see pitchers hit. I think that's just a joy, and most people will be like, "Oh, it just ruins the lineup. It's just a wasted spot." But I grew up watching guys like Madison Bumgarner, who was known as a home run pitcher. So it was really cool for me. I really enjoyed, and I guess it depends on how you grew up and what teams you watched growing up. Not everybody had a Madison Bumgarner or a guy that just slugged as a pitcher. But again, I've kind of come more around to the universal DH rule. I do see the benefit of it. I do if I had to make a change to baseball, I am now this is gonna maybe send you off the rails because this is kind of an idea I've been mulling. It's not completely super fleshed out yet. But my big change for baseball would be having designated defenders. Now stay with me here. The way it would work in a more fair way would be every team gets one or two spots on a roster to designate a player as a defensive only player, and somebody else would bat for them in the lineup. I also think maybe adding another roster spot or two would benefit from that as well, just to have that versatility there, so you're not handicapped by this person only plays defense, but we need him. This person only plays offense, but we need him. I think adding another roster spot or two would help benefit that. But that's kind of my big crazy idea, just having a guy that's a sole defender, kind of like a DH, but in reverse, to where you have you bring in a guy who's a exceptional Gold Glover, but he can't make contact to save his life. You could keep that guy on a roster, and he would have a strong job for a team, while also allowing yourself to bring up good hitters, guys that might not be super great defensively, and allow them to thrive in a batting role. I think that would be a super interesting change for baseball, but this is way off topic for what I was initially talking about. Now, why am I discussing the pitch clock changes and the universal DH rules? Well, because we just had two major injuries to the sport of baseball, one of which being Spencer Strider, and the other one being Shane Bieber. Two guys I have previously talked about before, and two guys that I was super high on coming onto this season. Spencer Strider, as we already discussed, was the runner-up for the Cy Young Award through 280 strikeouts last year. Was absolutely unbelievable. And Shane Bieber was off to an unbelievable start this year, leading the majors in strikeouts, and was really kind of pulling away. Now, the NFLPA, since these two were injured, has come out and said that the main reason behind these injuries that they believe, because these are both elbow injuries, is because of the accelerated pitch clock and the accelerated stress on pitching repeatedly again and again and again and again and again. Now, I don't know about the validity of these statements. Obviously, it is the Major League Baseball Players Association, so I'm sure they have some sort of statistics to back this up or some data that they've been tracking for a long time. But it is kind of the first instance of a large pushback on these rules that were instated by Major League Baseball. Now, obviously, we had all the fans that were like, hey, we don't like this. And Major League Baseball was like, too bad. Rob Manfred, too bad. But now it's more like the NFLPA is saying, this is hurting players. And now I think we're going to have a broader and larger conversation about the pitch clock. Now, do I think anything's going to change because of these two injuries? I don't know. I honestly have no idea. Shane Bieber is officially ruled out for the remainder of the season, and Spencer Strider It was only a UCL sprain, so he's going to be reevaluated in 15 days. Hopefully he's fine. Hopefully I don't want to see I don't want to see either of those guys missing significant time, but it is apparent that these two injuries could have devastating effects. Though, in lieu to the fact that Bieber and Strider are now injured, it is giving way to talk about another name who's been recently popping up, which is Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet is now officially the leader in innings pitched, strikeouts, and pitching WAR. He's played 3 games this season, 1 win, 1 loss. So if there's any sort of silver lining to these injuries, it's that we get to talk about these other guys who we may not have because of the dominance that these two were showing early on in the season. But now a guy like Garrett Crochet can be allowed to thrive and will be allowed to be discussed more in detail. So that's kind of a fair silver lining. Now, the thing I wanted to kind of finally discuss on, just to finalize all my baseball roundup, I as previously mentioned, I went to the Giants home opener this last Friday, which is why I was gone. I was traveling throughout the weekend, things like that. Big accident on 92 on my way back. There was a car flipped over. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was just, luckily I was able to slip by it. But man, the home opener was great. It was wonderful. It was everything I needed and more. I was so happy just to be out there, Oracle Park. Now I know we lost Renee, and if you know who that is, it is sad. Though they do have the PA announcer, who sounds almost strikingly similar. I don't know if her dialogue was pre-recorded beforehand a little bit, but the new one sounds exactly like Renee. So if that was going to bother you at all, it doesn't really make much of a difference. Obviously, Renee has been a joy to have around. I wish her the best of luck in her later adventures in life, but we will be fine. We will be fine. Now, my biggest concern going into this game, other than the fact that we had 2 wins, was Jordan Hicks. Now, it's not so much of a concern as it was something I was excited to watch. Jordan Hicks, who is a converted reliever into a starter, came over in free agency from the St. Louis Cardinals. And in his first outing this season, he threw 5 shutout innings. And I was like, okay, I want to see what this guy can do. I want to see up close how good it looks. Can this experiment work? And so far, I am proud to say that it is. Jordan Hicks threw 7 innings, only allowing 1 earned run in the game on Friday. It eventually went down as a no decision, but he played excellent. Now, Jordan Hicks is a guy who is famously known as a fastballer, just throws absolute gas. Absolute, unbelievable, unrelenting gas with his sinker and his fastball. He also has a nice little sweeper that he kind of throws in every now and then just to keep you honest. But I think it's been a resounding success as of this point. Now, the Giants, since opening day, finalized the series with the Padres by winning last night. So they won the series. Their first series they went 2-2, and then this last series they went 2-1. So we have 4 wins. Our only 4 wins of the season are against the Padres. And that's what happens when you get swept by the Dodgers, which I am very sad to talk about. I don't want to talk about it, in fact. I will talk to you about it next time we play them. And hopefully we'll get a win. But it was a tough stretch coming out to start the season. Everybody's kind of just waiting for the arrival of Blake Snell, who will pitch today. I'm super excited about that. I cannot wait to watch Blake Snell playing today. The 8th against the Nationals. That's going to be unbelievable. But everybody was kind of looming in wait for that. We have so many different pitchers injured. We're still waiting on Robbie Ray. Did you know Robbie Ray was on the Giants? I knew that, but did you know that? We're still waiting on that. So Blake Snell is going to be the first major addition back from injury that should help propel us back into a strong winning space. Hopefully, we'll be able to start a nice little streak um, against these Nationals, who have not been the greatest of teams this year. So hopefully, we can capitalize on them not playing well and us trying to move on an uptick and move from there. But oh my God, opening day was so fantastic. I got absolutely hammered. We were, oh my God, I think I ate like three hot dogs on opening day. Oh my God, it was a joy. It was just a blast. I went with my family. It was wonderful. We had great seats. We were kind of up. We were as high up as you can get. Like if there was any kind of weather, we were the first ones to know about it. We're up by the flags on the top, if you know what I'm talking about. We're literally up by the flags. But we just had an entire view of the field. We have a view of the cove. It was beautiful. It was a perfect day. A little windy, but we had our backs to a wall, and the wind was coming kind of that way, so we never really felt it. It was just a joy to be there. And it culminated with a beautiful walk-off hit by Tyro Estrada, Yankees legend Tyro Estrada, as Matt Chapman, who, forgive me for the fuzzy details again, hammered. Matt Chapman, who was previously hit by a pitch, ended up rounding all the way home. Very reminiscent of the Darren Ruff opening day, which I also went to, where he rounded all the bases from first to home and walked it off. It was an unbelievable, unbelievable day, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. Especially after getting swept by the Dodgers, it was really nice to have a strong, triumphant win to kind of get ourselves back on a more positive note. And again, Jordan Hicks was absolutely fantastic, and I got to see a lot of the guys that I was really excited for. I got to see Soler, I got to see Matt Chapman, I got to see Nick Ahmed. I got to see all those guys. I got to see Lamont Wade. I got to see, I think Wilmer Flores played in that game. I can't really remember. But it was just a great time. I had a lot of fun. And I hope you had a lot of fun. This was a nice little discussion. We're about the 40-minute mark right now. I don't mind talking in long excess. I just only hope to have enough content in order to talk in long excess without having to just stare at this thing for stats and numbers and talk to you like this. That's really great. So I am back. And I will be planning on making a lot more videos. We are coming up on the NFL draft. Now, I don't expect to be talking a whole lot of baseball or a whole lot of NFL the next few days. I think once we get closer to the end of April is when I'm primarily going to get back into an NFL focus and really discuss the NFL draft, what the Niners do, any big things that I saw, that kind of stuff. But for now, it's going to be pretty much all baseball. I plan to do these weekly roundups, like I said, and I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you had a great time watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.